Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Clashing Conferences, Five Fingers to the Face podcast proudly presents to you, oh, we got a champion in the house, ladies and gentlemen, an actual real champion other than Rick Ramon. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one, the only, the champion, Thom Latimer. Thank you for joining us tonight, champ.
Let's go. Let's go.
Thank you, boys. I appreciate you having me.
That is one pretty belt. I will get to that in 1 minute, sir, because again, I'm not used to having someone else out here with such shiny jewelry and apparel like myself. So again, before we start the interview, I would like to give a shout out to our sponsors. Again, if you're in the Lancaster area and you are in need of a haircut, we all know who to go see. It's Lean. If you are a member of the Clashing Conferences podcast, you get a discount. So if you are getting your haircut and not going to see Lean, Tom's going to come find you and hit you with that belt, and I'm going to videotape it. So Sparrow Hair Studio, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Go see Lean. Also, if you're looking to get a nice 3D custom chain, go see Lotwin. We all saw Topher's Topher Knicks chain. I mean, it looks great. I don't like the Knicks, but hey, they did a great job of making a bad team look good. So if you are interested in getting a custom 3D chain and you want all the hype, go see Lotwin, and they won't make you spell the name. You boys ready?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So we have the heavyweight champion in the house tonight. Sir, you were admiring my belt. Would you like me to explain it real quick before these boys start peppering you?
Yeah. Smart me up.
All right. So last year, I got introduced to these gentlemen via a friend that I made when I was on deployment in the Air Force. And so I got brought on, and I am a Celtics fan. We were doing basketball, and I realized after I committed, oh boy, I'm going to watch sports and be on the internet, and I'm going to record all this, which is probably a bad idea. So I was very reserved, and we ended up winning. So now this year, I am the golden champion because I'm the first person on Clashing Conferences that their team won a championship, and I predicted it. So we only have two. He doesn't like to show up. He doesn't even go to parades, so he doesn't count. So the only champions in the house tonight are you and me, Tom. How does it feel?
Feels great. Does that thing spin?
Well, of course it does. Of course it does. Oh, yes.
No expense spared on that one, I can tell.
No, none at all. None at all. And it has nothing to do with John Cena's spinner chain.
Right.
It definitely is not that, okay?
Yeah.
This is a custom Clashing Conferences with some Velcro.
It's all right. You know, I mean, can it be lost? I mean, do you have to defend it constantly?
Or only every day, just like you, I'm sure, with your belt, sir. Every day I have to defend it against these jamokes. Look at them. Do you see any belts with these guys? I rest my case.
You got the 10 pounds of gold. He has the 1 pound of gold.
But
his waist,
his will be nicer traveling with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, boys, all jokes aside, we have a very special guest in the house tonight. I know I do a lot of talking. I'll do a lot more talking later, but right now I want to open the floor to you guys. I would like for you to be able to ask some questions round robin style. So again, boys, feel free, go at it, and away you go.
Tom, I gotta ask, what got you started into wrestling? Did you grow up a wrestling fan, or was it just something that you liked beating people up and figured I might as well get paid for it?
Man, it's funny really, because I sometimes do think, I do wonder what I'd be doing had I not have gone this route. When I was a kid growing up, we didn't have cable TV. And so it was still back in the day where you had 4 channels, you know, like normal TV. And so I'd have to go over to friends' homes and crash at people's places and stay up till 2 a.m. to be able to watch it, right? But I actually, funnily enough, I just remember coming to school one day and some kids were butterfly suplex in the backpacks. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, oh, wrestling. And then little by little, I'd get hold of like old tapes from other kids at school and stuff like that. And I'd sort of seen it in passing once or twice when I'd be over at friends' homes. And I remember stopping and sort of, you know, trying to figure out what it was and then going back to playing around or whatever. But for some reason, I don't know why, it just stuck with me. And I thought, especially 1998, when I saw Foley get tossed off the cage, that's when I went, that's what I want to do. Which is, you know, madness, right?
Yeah.
And then, honestly, it's actually Jeff Hardy. Like, when I remember seeing him, I was a big Shawn Michaels fan, but I was seeing Jeff Hardy and thinking he was the coolest guy in the world. And so once I saw someone like him, I was like, okay, even though I can't do anything like Jeff can, I was like, I want to be him. That, you know, I want to get into this job. But for me, it was a bit like deciding one day, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut now and go to the moon. That's how difficult it felt, especially back in England at that time, because you know we were still living in caves back then. You know what I mean? Like everything is extra hard, and there's just no, you know, how do you get to America? How do you break into this job? So for me, it was just I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just had no idea how I'd go about it, and I've been very sort of blessed and lucky. A lot of this is the right time, right place, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. How did who got you your start? Like who did you like kind of emulate, and who did you train with when you first got started?
Well, it's actually kind of funny because my grandparents they hated pro wrestling, but for some reason, I randomly found like a WrestleMania 8 tape in their, you know, in their tape closet or whatever, and there's no reason why this tape should have been there. Like I said, they hated wrestling, so the only thing that I could think of is maybe someone at the pub gave my grandpa the tape and went, "Hey, you know, Des, check this out at some point," and he just went, ugh, just tossed it in the pile. Because, like I said, they didn't like wrestling at all. So the fact it was there was really bizarre. And then I went to school. There's a kid a few years older than me, and I showed up at my grandma's house one day, and she's like, "Oh, you know, Steve from up the road, yeah, he's wrestling. He's on tour right now. He's." And I was thinking, wow, he's only a few years older than me, and he's with the WWF. I couldn't believe it. Right, I had no idea there was a thing called independent wrestling. And then one night I bumped into him. I think I was about 14. We're out on the town, and all of it. And I said, Steve, you know, I heard you wrestling. You know, I want to join. And so he ended up getting me to referee a bunch of really small independent shows. And then from then it just progressed. And so it was just kind of weird that it was my grandparents twice that sort of facilitated the wrestling, even though they didn't like it. You know what I mean? It's very strange.
Yeah,
And so I sort of had a bit of training at that point, but nothing really substantial. But when I was 17 or 18, I moved to Harrogate, which is next door to a place called Leeds, and there I ended up finding a wrestling school that was ran by. I don't know if you guys know much about British wrestling back in the day, in like the 60s, 70s, or whatever. It was on, maybe even the early 80s. It was on TV, and it was called World of Sport, and
hmm
you know, proper, you know, men's grappling. You know, they look like they just walked out the pub and get in the ring. And so I was trained by a guy called Jeff Kay and Drew McDonald, and they were World of Sport guys. And so by that point, Jeff was just an old guy. He'd sort of stand there, just smoking his cigarette, watching us train wrestle on mats on the concrete floor. And it was just in a dirty gym in the middle of Leeds. No one would know it was there. And so even with that, I got really, really lucky because Jeff was friends with Fit Finlay. So a lot of the lads, when I got there, they'd already been having quote unquote WWE tryouts from when they were kids because of Jeff's connection to Finlay. So once I got there, it was like, obviously it was still an impossibility, but there was a connection there. There was some way to be able to get to, or at least expose myself to the WWE. So yeah, Jeff Kay and Drew McDonald, they're the ones that I trained with them for about a year or two, and then I was pretty much instantly then wrestling every weekend, and that's really where you learn. You learn on the job. There's only so much you can. And don't get me wrong, you need it, but there's only so much you can do on mats on a concrete floor.
yeah,
Eventually, you got to get out there in front of people, and so I was just very, very lucky. There was shows every weekend, and we'd be, as a green kid, I'd be out there in front of 1,200 people every weekend. So it was, and there was a lot of wrestling back then too in the UK. There's certain times when I'd be wrestling 6 days a week, which is kind of unheard of. But yeah, so that's sort of how I got started and who trained me.
that's awesome.
Did you ever have
Well,
to? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Trey. Did you ever
no,
have
you're
to
good.
go like perform in front of? Because I did stand up for a little bit, and did you ever have to do rooms where it was like 7 people, and you're like, "This is awkward." Okay, well, we're doing
Oh,
this.
yeah, that happens all the time. you know, you never know. I mean, I feel like when you're in front of a smaller crowd, I definitely feel more nervous. I'm always nervous anyway to a degree, but when when you just feel like you're really under the microscope when there's only a few amount of people. Plus, as well, like the job hurts, and so when you've got 7 people, they're not. Even if they're making all the noise in the world, it's still 7 people, and so everything hurts extra because there's nothing to feed off, and they also feel, what's the word? They also feel exposed because if they do want to shout and scream and holler, it's slightly more intimidating if it's a brightly lit room with a few people in there. Everyone's just kind of quiet, so having a larger audience definitely helps in that respect for many different reasons.
Okay.
What would you say is like your moment of realization that, oh my gosh, I can just be a pro wrestler for the rest of my career? Like, what was your kind of come to Jesus moment of, all right, this is the path I'm going to go down?
Man, I don't know. I knew that it was what I was going to do, and deep down in my gut, I knew I was going to make it, whatever that means. But for me, it would even just be moving to America and being able to pay my bills. It depends or going to WWE. Like, all depends what your level of making it is. But to me, it was like, I'm going to go to WWE and I'm going to be a big star there. But I think the moment when I went, oh, this is something that is viable, because again, it still felt like a million miles away, was in 2005. I had a WWE tryout. I think I'd have been 18 or 19. It was pretty soon after I'd started with Jeff Kay and Drew McDonald, and they put me and a friend of mine in a match on WWE. Yeah, WWE Heat, and it was me and Chris versus Snitsky and Tomko, and it was just a 5-minute squash match, and I get whipped into Tomko at some point, and he big boots me, and I just explode onto the mat, right, just splat. But I remember, and I had no idea what I was doing. Looking back, I'm like, I don't even know how I survived that. But I remember instantly hitting the deck and just hearing, I don't know how many people was there, I don't know, 9, 10,000, whatever it was, at the Sheffield Arena, and people just going, whoa. And then I remember looking over to the corner and seeing the turnbuckle and it had the WWE logo on, and I went, oh, I'm in a WWE ring right now. I just got my face kicked in. Uh, it was mad to me. I was like, oh, this could be something. And it's like I said, it still felt like a million miles away. I mean, back then they were giants. They were all, gassed up.
Right.
And I'm this tiny little skinny, pale midget from England. And so, again, it just felt like an ocean apart. But at that point, I went, oh, wait, maybe there is something here. Because to me, at that point in my life, all I wanted to do was go to WWE. And that's how I think 99% of wrestlers feel, until they realize that there's obviously other things out there and there's more options. And it's not the be all and end all. But at the time when I was 18, that was it. That was what I had my
Right.
sight set on.
That's awesome.
All right, so you said that you obviously took a pretty big bump in that match. What would you say is like the biggest bump that you've ever taken in your wrestling career?
Man, I don't really. So I've got a gross one, and then I think a bump that really stands out to me for sucking was, I think it was a TNA show. It was while we're in the UK. I think it was while we were at Wembley Arena, something like that. We're definitely in the UK, and it was just something really quick where Nick Aldis had powerbombed me on the ramp, and I think it's on YouTube somewhere, and I bounce. But I just remember landing and it's like you just want to die. Like, every time I get hit in the back with a chair, I always like weep a little bit and cry because it hurts so bad, right? And it was one of those bumps where I landed and I went, oh, I probably just shaved off a good 10 years of my career right there. It was just a power bomb. So that really sucked. Instantly, that sticks out in my mind. But then my nastiest, horriblest sort of bump, quote unquote, was, and I'm actually going back there in 2 weeks, so fingers crossed. I was in Rome, wrestling in Rome. Nick was there, funnily enough. And I was wrestling with one of my pals there, and everything in Rome, if you ask for, it was a hardcore match, but if you want thumbtacks, a table chair, you'll get it, but it's not going to be what you think it is. It'll be the European version, which is, not what you need. And so we end up doing this spot where a chair is set up like this, and I would somehow end up taking a hip toss onto it, which is a front flip basically. And on a metal folding chair, it sucks, but it just crushes. You just crush it. It's hard. It doesn't feel good in the slightest, but it's not dangerous, And so, for some reason, I was wearing a kilt at the time, and I always think, man, I wish I'd have kept that kilt on because it could have saved me. But I didn't. I'd choked him with my kilt and taken it off before running in to take front flip on the chair, and it was a plastic and metal chair, and so this thing just exploded the second that I landed on it. It went right up my ass. It went right up, and it was awful. And I remember landing and going, "Oh no!" And I pushed myself up, and I looked at my hand, and there was flesh, blood, and that pillow on my hands, and I went up. But at this point, Jimmy doesn't know, so he kicks me out the ring. He's like, "I'm gonna dive on you." I'm thinking, "Oh no, no, no!" And he dives on me, and he throws me back in, and I go, "Jimmy, I'm hurt, I'm hurt." And he's like, "No, no, I was supposed to win," and he was trying to make it so he'd go for something, I'd roll him up or something. I just landed on the floor, went, "No, pin me, Jimmy." And so I got out and got to the back, and when I pulled down my trunks, just stuff came out, and long story short, I don't have a normal butthole anymore. what they don't have there is plastic surgeons, and that's really who I should have seen. They were all screaming and yelling and making me sign papers, and they're like, I had no idea what they were talking about, but I just signed whatever. Like, oh, okay. Oh. They're all screaming and yelling, and the next minute I'm asleep, and they sew me up. But they basically just sort of cowboyed me and just stitched me up as so I would I'd be in one piece. And but I was in there for about a week, and I ended up just discharging myself after a while because it's not a third world country, but it kind of felt like it while I was in there, and I thought I'm never going to get out of here. Yeah. So in the end, I ended up just signing myself out and managing to get out of there. But it was absolutely awful, the whole ordeal, and that move, it was horrible. So like I said, I'm back there in 2 weeks, so you best believe I'm staying away
from chairs.
Listen, as our friend who isn't here, he would say, that sounds like a normal Tuesday in Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's I'd say they're the two that stick out to me.
That sounds brutal.
Yeah. Stuff isn't supposed to go up there, boys.
That's the exclusive content you get here on the Clashing Conferences Network. Fantastic.
Thom, I wanted to piggyback off that question. What's a moment that sticks out to you where something went wrong for an opponent in the ring or someone that you were working with where you were like, oh man, this guy needs help, like match over?
I mean, I'm very blessed with the fact that, especially say at the NWA, I'm around people that I got moved to America in 2010. And so a lot of the older boys like myself, they're all people that I've been around with forever. And so everyone is a professional, and even the youngsters they all get it. And so, we're quite safe in our bubble when it comes to being in the ring with people, and I can trust 99% of the people there, and vice versa. And so you forget. It's only when sometimes you go on the independents or you're running around somewhere and then you're away from those types of people, and it's not the wrestlers' faults that you're meeting, but you do realize, there's definitely you sometimes get lulled into a false sense of security where you'll have a conversation with the guy and it sounds great, and he obviously gets everything that's going to happen, and he seems to be there with everything, and then as soon as you lock up with him and you feel him, you go, oh no. Oh no, why did we think this, and so it's pretty rare that anything like that ever really happens. Off the top of my head though, I can remember when I was a kid, like I would have been about, I don't know, 16 or something, emulating Jeff Hardy, ended up swantoning two guys laying side by side, and this would have been in front of 7 people at the time.
Mm.
Two guys like this, and there's a larger gentleman, and unfortunately he took all my weight, and I think I broke 1 or 2 of his ribs, but luckily it was a finish, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But no, he was fine, but I felt a little bit bad for him. But again, I was 16 years old. I had no business being in the ring, and he had no business allowing me to do it to him.
So that kind of rolls into my next question would be was like, what is a spot that you can think in your head where it was like in your head you were like, I don't know if this is gonna hit, and then we love our holy shit chants in wrestling. So like, what's a spot where that happened? You're like, oh my god, that was so cool, and the crowd felt the same way.
Man, I feel like there's been a lot of moments for me like that. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of it. It's been. I try to. The wife will tell me off if I if I do anything too daft. And so I have to, choose when I'm going to do something silly or not. And the older you get, the more that you realize that even just a simple moonsault off the top turnbuckle. I mean, I start to worry about a lot of that stuff now, whereas back in the day I wouldn't. I'd have no fear. And so just being older, the fear factor starts creeping in because you don't recover as quick, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just trying to think. It's tough to be able to recollect anything off the top of my head, but maybe but any time that it's successful and you hear that chant, or you're fine, because it's one of those things. If I'm gonna jump off something onto someone, you can't bottle it, you can't panic, you fully commit. And generally, what I'll do is I go for it and I don't think, because the second I think, then I would, and then the second you do that, you're gonna hurt yourself or even worse, somebody else. But I feel like maybe just because it's easy, there's a part where I was in TNA working under the ring name Bram, and they'd sort of pigeonholed me in this hardcore. I don't know why, but they decided that I was sort of a hardcore wrestler. And so they had me doing some of Abyss's sort of style matches with barbed wire boards and big sticks with giant spikes in it that could kill a man, things like that. And I think like spearing Abyss through one of the boards, or or getting choke slammed on the thumbtacks in here and there. Because we were also at the Manhattan Center in New York, so it was like that frenzied sort of. I grew up on the Attitude Era. I grew up on ECW, that kind of stuff. So to be there doing that kind of stuff and getting that reaction from the crowd, stuff like that was pretty cool. But I've done a million of these things.
Yeah.
Style things. I'm sure there's other things out there, but off the top of my head, and that's on YouTube somewhere. If you went back and looked, I've got a big beard.
Yep. That was actually, that leads me to one of my questions, right? So you brought up the matches with Abyss, even having Tommy Dreamer and those styles matches. So did you prefer that style of match when you were a little younger, or do you like what you're doing now, like going up against, Stu Grayson, formerly Baron Corbin, or Bishop Dyer, whatever he's going by now? Which one do you prefer now having in your career?
Yeah, as a kid, I totally loved the sort of the Ring of Honor, the crazy flip off anything. Like I said, big Jeff Hardy fan, like my violence, my blood, my hardcore stuff. When I was a kid too, I'd even order like the Cage of Deaths off eBay, like someone had pirated, the light tubes and all that. I loved it as a kid. And then the older I got, once I started getting into the job, then now it's something that I'm not I'll still watch it, if it was to be on TV, but it's definitely not something that I gravitate towards just because I'm in the job. So for me, it's great. It's a double-edged sword because it's really great because you get the reaction you want instantly. But they're saying, but it's kind of cheap in a way. So it's not like you've got to do much to be able to work for it. You can crack a guy in the back with a chair, and everyone goes, "Yay!" You've not had to tell a story on how you. I mean, you could have, but you know what I'm saying. So like, my style and what I view and what I like has definitely changed, especially once I got into the job, because the second I got into the job, I couldn't watch it anymore as a wrestling fan, and I still don't. And there's certain times where I just like wish that I could just leave my brain or put the 12-year-old brain back in and just enjoy it for what it is instead of breaking it down. It's sort of, it is what it is. But back to sort of like Stu Grayson or whatever, I think that I'm an older chap now. I'm 38. I've been wrestling since I was 16, and so he's a hell of an athlete, and and I'm a pretend athlete. You know what I mean? I might look like one, but and so I also like to occasionally test myself and go, because he's cardio all day. He's just an animal. He's crazy strong. And so for me, I also like to occasionally dip my toe in that style of a match, or his style, because just to know that I can still hang in there with people like that, because the caliber is crazy. And so for me, I definitely gravitate towards more wrestling and storytelling, and I think that's just the kind of style that I like. But it's also the style that I can do, because I can't do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, and listen, don't sell yourself short, man. You're a hell of an athlete, so I don't want to hear you sell yourself short. So, last question I'll have for you is, with your career as it is now, from the historical perspective of the title you have on your shoulder, does that ever, like, do you ever sit back and think about all the other wrestlers that have held that title and now you're in that category?
Uh-huh.
Does it ever sit there and you're like, damn, I'm in the same category now as Bruno Sammartino, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair? Like, does that ever sink in and you're like, damn, I'm that guy now?
I think maybe when it's all said and done, it will. I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. Just that when I was a kid, getting into the job, it was we weren't allowed to. We'd get told off if we were to watch wrestling. We'd get told off if we were to sort of talk about wrestling. Stop being marks. It was you'll be a death sentence to take a picture with another wrestler or ever be a mark to whatever degree, right? And so it was sort of drilled into us to not be. And so the second I got into the job, that's how I've always been. That's how I've viewed it all. And so I do occasionally have to put on my 12-year-old boy's shoes and look back and go, wow. Yes, my career might not have been, sun and rainbows the entire time, and I've took the long road to get to where I want to be. But at the same time, I'm ultimately blessed and very, very lucky. And when I do think back of the places I've been, even the fact I get to live in America to me is great. I was born in England, but I'm American at heart. And so just even being here is amazing for me and a privilege. And so, I do have to sometimes be on the outside of the window looking in and just remind myself, because it's very easy to sort of not think that way or be jaded or whatever. So I'm sure that down the road I'll look back and I'll think things like that. But for me, it's just always just kind of been okay, on to the next thing, onto the next thing. And that's not to take away how special it is. It's just hard for me to look at it as a fan. You know what I mean?
Because you're in the moment now. Yeah, I get that. Yep,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. It's weird.
My last question is going to be this, okay? So we call it CMT. It's Cuddle, Marry, or Trash. You can only keep one of these props for the rest of your career. Tables, ladders, and chairs. Which one are you cuddling? Which one are you marrying? Which one are you trashing? Tables, ladders, and chairs.
That's a great question.
CMT for the TLC.
I'll probably get rid of the ladder.
No ladders. Okay.
Yeah, I would. It'd be a toss up between the chair and as long as it's not a plastic metal one. That or the table, because all I'm thinking of right now is, if this was me when I was 20, oh, give me the ladder, give me the table, and then you just give me all, I'll marry all of them. Whereas now I'm thinking, which one's going to hurt me less, and which one can we make it look like devastating and not do a thing. So yeah, it'd be. I'd probably say I'll marry the chair, just because you can pull that, and you can and the table. Well, that could go either way. You could get hurt, or it could be nothing. So
I like it. Good answer.
Good question, Patty. I like that.
Going off track a little bit, back to what you said, your days in TNA. My personal belief, Abyss super underrated in his career. Uh, Going back to my original question, well, not original, the one I just thought of based off that. What would you say your favorite match would be in your entire career? And then to piggyback off that, who was your favorite talent to work with?
Man, yeah, you're right about Abyss. I mean, I didn't realize at the time, but obviously he was sort of tipping his hat to me and putting me over in his style matches and giving the young guy the rub. And at the time, I didn't realize, and so
His,
very
his
grateful.
run with Sabu was ridiculous.
Well, I
Those
mean,
were those were my favorite matches of his to watch.
yeah, Abby's always just been a freak when it comes to this stuff. I mean, and not only that, he's the sweetest human being you could ever meet. But no, I'm very blessed and honored that he did that for me, because he didn't have to. But at the time, I didn't realize. But that's a real tough one when it comes to favorite matches or ones that have stood out, because there's been a million different moments. I mean, I remember the
Right.
first time that when I was in NXT with the Ascension, and me and Ryan came out, and the fans, I think they'd seen the hype videos by that point or whatever, and when we came out the place, they knew who we were and they made noise, and I remember getting goosebumps all over and being like, oh wow, because it'd been the first time that we'd ever sort of been recognized, I guess you could say. I mean, we've been there wrestling for a couple of years. No one knew who we were, but at that point, like
Right.
the show, we were elevated. It was the first time that we got a reaction like that, and I remember thinking, oh man, just being filled with goosebumps. But I'll say, after COVID, we took about a year off. NWA sort of shut down for the year, and then the first TV tapings back, we did Back for the Attack, and I wrestled Pope there. It was like a 12-minute match. I might have even been less, I can't remember. But it was the first time I wrestled in a year. And even though the fans there were the boys, because we weren't allowed to have the general public in yet, I don't know why, it just felt like a good match. We had a good time, even though we knew that the boys aren't really popping for us, we're playing along. I don't know what it was. I think maybe it's because it was the year off too. And Pope, I love wrestling Pope, and he's a hell of a talent. And so that match sort of is one that I'll always sort of speak about, just because it was in a weird time and it felt really, really good to be out there doing it with him. And then I'm trying to think. It's really tough to be able to think, because I've had so many good opponents, and there's so many people in there. There's so many amazing wrestlers that I've had the privilege to work with. I always love wrestling Ken Anderson, Drew Galloway, Rampage Brown. He's a friend of mine that was in NXT in the UK for a while. Nick, obviously wrestled Nick a bunch. I'm trying to think, and there's other guys you'll get in there with just freaks, and they'll throw you around, like Bobby Lashley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know they'll all come to me later. It's so hard off the top of my head to think. But I mean, at NWA now, there's a lot of up and coming youngsters, and a guy that is. There's two guys actually that really are the future, in my opinion, when it comes to the NWA, or these guys becoming big names, and that's Thrillbilly Silas Mason, and he's a big boy and he can toss me around too. And then and Carson Drake. So, and I've wrestled both of those guys, and so they're the new ones that I would say that they're my new guy favorite opponents.
Oh.
Gotcha.
All right, boys. Do we know what time it is?
I think we do.
What time is it?
Mad Libs.
Yeah, that's right. And for our guest, Matt's not having a seizure. He's just doing something so that way we can make it look cool when we edit it for the episode or whatever we call, I don't know, Friday. But either way, Friday it'll drop. Content manager, edit out that thing where I stuttered. You know what to do. Music, please. more than one. That's gonna come back and haunt somebody. No, they're quick. They're quick. Easy one goes bye-bye. And we're back. All right, here we go. It'll look cool on Friday, Tom, I promise. Not so much now. All right. Couple of questions for you here. Inquiring Minds, a.k.a. Rick Ramon, would like to know. So, first thing is, I see you have a cool new boss. Are you considering starting somewhat of a Austin McMahon rivalry with their president, Mr. Corgan?
I actually thought about this on a plane about 2 days ago, funnily enough. And there's been times when I have gone up against the boss to some degree. I've been babyface now for a couple of years, and so I think the second that I turn back to being a nasty boy, then I will find the boss. but right now, me and him are friends.
Is he aware of this, or are you just going to just spring it on him out of the blue?
No, he's done this kind of stuff with me before in the past. We've just got onto Roku, so that's where we're gonna be. We're gonna be slowly transitioning off X, and we're gonna be on Roku. And I feel like there's other things afoot too. I'm not aware of any of them. I've just heard rumblings. But I'm hoping that when it comes to more exposure and more sort of TVS stuff, I'm sure that it'd be very easy to sort of have some sort of feud pick up again properly with the boss this time. Yeah, it's something that once I turn back to being a baddie, it's something that I'd like to do.
Cool. Bonus question: how fun is it when you're a bad guy just pissing everybody off? Is it as I enjoy it.
It's very natural, which is slightly worrying.
It's a talent, yeah. All right, I know we've been picking your brain on wrestling tonight. This is going to be a hard one, but again, just the first answers that come to your mind. Who is on your wrestling Mount Rushmore?
Well, Jeff Hardy, Shawn Michaels, Dynamite Kid. That'd be my top three just off the top of my head.
That's awesome.
Well, how many?
That's awesome.
Do I need another two? Or,
Yeah, one more.
One more.
Another one. Oh, man.
You can say yourself.
Yeah, let's do that because my brain's not working.
That'd be a great fatal four-way match. Just saying.
Yeah. I can tell you like a particular style, though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
High flying, athletic, acrobatic, all that. Showing.
Right, which is funny because, like I said, I can't do any of that. But as a kid, I was very loved that kind of stuff, and so I think I ended up sort of becoming more of a fan of what I know that I can do, and as much as I'd love to be able to do all that stuff, I can't. So the sort of it changed, and like I said, the older I get too, the more that those sorts of if I can nip up and land on my feet, that's a good day. The second I start falling on my butt in front of people, right, gotta go.
All right, so this is the last two questions. This is the part, though. It's like the end of the 90s sitcoms, you know what I mean, where we kind of lull you in with the jokes, and then at the end we kind of do the oh moment, and then cue the music, and we're out of here. So here comes the fun one. So favorite cartoons growing up or now?
Oh, as a kid, Ren and Stimpy. I was a big fan of Ren and Stimpy. I'm a big Simpsons fan. Like if you sat down with me and Nick, for example, we could rattle off a million, half an episode's worth of stuff. Family Guy. I've been watching this new one on Hulu. Does anyone else watch cartoons?
Yeah.
It's about a bunch of guys that have been put on welfare because the robots have taken over the jobs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I will.
I can't think what it's called. Anyway,
I don't know that one.
I shouldn't even brought it up.
He'll find it. Don't worry. We'll be good. Steve will edit it and he'll put it in up here or something. He'll find it. It'll be good.
South Park too. South Park. Big fan of South Park. I've even got a Ren and Stimpy.
Are you talking about Rick and Morty?
Oh, I like Rick and Morty too, but no, Ren and Stimpy.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's about it. I'm sure there's others in there. Yeah. I mean, they're your box standard ones, aren't they?
Yeah, no, those are all solid choices. Let's be real. Now, again, the reason why I ask you that, right? Because again, I've heard, and this is why I want to end on this note. So I've heard a lot of the, again, the 12-year-old brain in here, and that's how we look at things or how we try to look at things. So 12-year-old you, the mountain that you were trying to climb was wrestling. Well, you are now at the top of that mountain. So now at this age and stage of your life, what's the next mountain that you're looking to try to climb or get up?
Well, for me, it's taken me this long to get to this part of the mountain, so I kind of want to stay here for a little bit, and I think that I want to settle into the role that I've got now, and stay and try and stay in that elevated position. I want to be with the NWA till it's time to put my boots on the shelf and say that's it. So for me, it's just a question of now we're being older and my body's pretty beaten up. It's just staying healthy and just trying to. Basically, I'm at the point now in my career where I wish I'd have been who I am now at 20 when I still had, a body that doesn't hurt and but I don't. And so we've all got a limited shelf life when it comes to this job. And so for me, it's just a question of staying healthy and doing and being able to show the wrestling world who Thom Latimer is and who he should have always been. So for me, this is my mountain. It really is just a question of how long can I keep going.
Like these answers. Well, Chance, thank you for joining us tonight. You've been great. You've been a great guest. It was an absolute pleasure having you. Again, guys, anybody else that's out there, if you would like to join the Clashing Conferences, by all means, we are always looking for new members. We are up to, and I believe, over 23 people. We are covering numerous states. And again, so if you want to join us, hit us up. We're all over the place. But again, reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, I don't know, hit us up, you know what I mean? Send us a postage, whatever, we're around. But again, if you want to join us, you can come talk to cool champions like me and Tom. I don't know about the rest of these guys. You guys need a belt. What are we doing?
I'll fight you for yours.
Yeah, I'll pay to see that.
Listen, I already got a whole bunch of dirty knickerbockers lined up that are going to get that business in basketball. So, you know what I mean? Stay tuned for that, Tom. You can watch me beat the brakes off some people this summer in basketball. It's going to be
with or without chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
I was just happy you didn't ask me any sports questions because I know I'm an Englishman. I should like football. I don't like any sports. My wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" But I don't know. I just like wrestling. I don't know.
Nothing wrong with that.
Thanks for not asking me any sports questions.
You're welcome. Told you, we try to keep it light, easy, PG-13. You know what I mean? And then at the end of every episode, it's that time.
Yeah.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, Clashing Conferences, thank you for joining us. 5 Figures to the Face podcast. Have a good night. Boom, boom, boom.